Hi everybody. The purpose of this video is to talk you through how to approach work-related skills unit 1 at a foundation level. If that is not your level, then you need to find the appropriate video. The purpose of work-related skills unit 1 is to get you guys to do some industry research on a workplace that you might be interested in entering later on in your life. It's also designed to make you aware of occupational health and safety, or OH&S, and then give you the skills and to be comfortable enough to apply for jobs when it comes to it. All right. So to do this work, you should have a booklet that looks like this. Work-related skills, Unit 1, Outcome 4, Foundation is where we start. Outcome 4 goes from page 1 to 5 of this booklet. On the first page, you're required to do some workplace research from multiple sources. So you can see that here. There's specific questions that you need to answer. Firstly, what are the employment opportunities within the workplace? So what can you do besides a basic entry-level job? You might be able to be an apprentice, but can you then get trained up and be a qualified builder? And then could you become a business owner or a franchisee or something? What can you do there? What are your employee rights? So what rights do you have within the workplace? For instance, breaks, superannuation, etc. And what are your responsibilities? What are the things that you have to do as part of your job? You need to make sure that you choose a workplace that you can interview somebody over. This can be either a physical interview or it can be over the phone. This is the interview sheet that you're required to complete. These are the questions that are specifically outlined for you to ask those people, so you make sure you get the information you need. This interview does need to take place. It's not a theoretical thing. You do have to do it. So make sure you can approach someone over this. Again, can be in person or it can be over the phone. Once you've got that information, you need to compile that the information you found in both your interview and your workplace research into a presentation that you're going to give to staff and students. This presentation does need to use ICT somehow, so my recommendation is you put your information onto a PowerPoint. In regards to what you put on the PowerPoint, I'd look at the criteria or what we're going to put as feedback for you, the items we need to respond to. So I would make a slide for each. First slide, introducing the business, who they are, etc. After that, I'd be looking at the things on this sheet here. So I'd have a slide on employment opportunities within the workplace, a slide on employee rights, a slide on employee responsibility, and a slide on the interview. Okay. Because we are distance learning, you are going to have to make sure you record this presentation and email it through to a staff member. The physical PowerPoint does also need to make its way to a staff member too. If you decide to use any other ICT besides PowerPoint, that's fine. Just make sure that makes its way through to a teacher too. After that, we have a self-reflection for your presentation that you need to do on page 5. Just make sure you go through that. If you do all that, that will see you through outcome 4. Once we get back, you'll be able to show it to your presentation to a peer and they can give you feedback, unless you want to email that to someone now just to get it done. But after that, we are up to outcomes 1 and 2. In your booklets, this is page 6 to 20. The first thing you need to do is do some readings on what OH&S is and express some comprehension to that. So that is page 6 and 7. You just need to tell me the important points you found and any questions that you may have. From there, this can be off the top of your head or you can do research if you wish. You need to look at OH&S roles within a workplace. So I would suggest you choose the workplace that you were looking at earlier, but it's up to you. Look at the employer. What are their OH&S roles, OH&S duties, and OH&S responsibilities? And then the same questions again for employees, visitors, and volunteers. It does say you'd need to present this to a staff member. If you could just email that to one of us, that will be perfectly fine. After this, you need to look at what the role of a HSR is. A HSR is a health safety rep. In a big workplace, there'll be someone who's designated to that job. For instance, at school, that is Mr. Morrison, the music teacher. In other places, smaller businesses, it might just be the business owner themselves. They are the one who's responsible for safety in the workplace. What you need to do, again, thinking of that same workplace, you need to research the HSR's role, the HSR's powers, and the HSR's entitlements. Again, it says present it to a staff member, but if you could just email that to one of us, that would be great. After that, we need to look at a bit more generic OH&S stuff. So there's some questions on page 11 that you can work through. When is the employer required to consult with employees and elected HSRs? So find the source and just write what you found. The same again is true for the second question. What is the importance of providing OH&S information to employees, HSRs, visitors and volunteers in the selected work environment? And finally, how can you access and support services and resources provided by WorkSafe? For all of those, I recommend you go to worksafe.com and see what you can find there. The same is true for question 4. What is the concept of a safe place rather than a safe person? And what is the hierarchy of control? Include an image. Again, present this to staff, but you can email it to one of us, and you need to present it to a peer as well. So again, you can wait, or you could do it, you can email one of your friends now. After this, we need to look around and see if you can find any OH&S signs. You might not be able to do this at home, but you might be able to think about where you do your vet or your part-time job or wherever it might be. You just need to show us the sign, so take a picture of it, draw it, etc. Tell us where it is and tell us what it means. You need to do this for 3 different signs. After that, we have an image of the hierarchy of controls. It tells you about how we try and make things safer within a workplace. The PPE at the bottom is the most ineffective. Elimination at the top is the most effective, and it's a spectrum in between. So we obviously try and make the most effective thing happen the most often where it's practical. What you need to do is look at the potential an OH&S hazard. It could be anything. Look around home. There could be a tripping hazard. There could be, I don't know, people not knowing how to use tools properly or something like that. All you need to do is come up with a method for each of those risk control measures to fix it. So how could you eliminate it? How could you substitute it? How could you introduce engineering controls? How could you introduce administrative controls? And how can you use PPE? After this, we have a thing called a risk matrix. This and the hierarchy of controls is going to be really handy for you to do a risk assessment. And I'll explain how to do this as we get there. But there it is, the risk matrix. Okay, for your risk assessment, you need to identify an OH&S hazard and come up with a plan to fix it. This is, again, not theoretical. You do have to do this. So once you've done this plan, you need to actually follow it through and do it. So make sure it is something that's achievable you can do whilst at home or in your part-time job or whatever it might be. So you need to start by telling me what the risk is. We'll just say I've dug a hole for a deck and that hole is a tripping hazard. Detail of risk, people could trip over and hurt themselves. How is it identified? I saw it. Potential impact, serious injury. Now's when the risk matrix and the hierarchy of controls comes into play. We need to look at initial risk rating. So how dangerous is it at the moment? We need to look at consequence and likelihood and therefore create a risk rating. So we go back to the risk matrix. The consequence for that hole could be a major injury. So I would write major injury in consequence. The likelihood, I would say it's very likely. So I would write that there. Very likely. Our risk rating is the combination of the two. So we've got very likely, major injury. Our risk is high. So I would write that there. I now need to tell us what our risk treatment strategy is. I'm going to put up a temporary fence. The responsibility is mine, so me. And the timeline is as soon as possible. If you want to make it more concrete, like the 20th of the 4th, then write that. We now need to look at, once that's done, what is the residual risk? So I would suggest, what's the risk is that remains? The consequence is probably still the same. It's still going to be a major injury. So I'd write that there. The likelihood, though, is much less likely because their fence is up. I would say our likelihood is highly unlikely. So I'd write that there. The risk rating should therefore be much lower. So highly unlikely, still a major injury. It's a medium risk. So I'd write medium there. And you should see that this rating is lower than this rating. There's 4 boxes, just in case there's other ways you can work your way around that risk. Okay. Now, for each of those risk control measures or hazard control measures that you come up with, putting a temporary fence up, putting signs up, correct training, whatever it might be, you need to just think about it yourself and write down the positives and negatives of each one. This starts on page 19. So if I've got name, Mr. Coombs, workplace, school, hazard control measure is the temporary fence. Positives, it's very hard to get into once it's set up. It does make the site secure. Negatives, costs a lot of money to get temporary fence, might need more than one person. Overall reflection, it's a good measure if you can afford it and get it going. And just do that for each of the measures that you have come up with. You again need to present this to a staff and a peer. Again, just email it to us and a peer if you can, or wait for the peer until you're back at school. Now, you do again actually have to do this now. So outcome 3 requires you to plan that in a bit more detail and do the work itself. So page 21 asks you to tell me where the location of the OH&S concern is, wherever that hole is. Solution, put the fence up, put signs up, whatever it is. And then which one do you recommend and why? I'm saying the temporary fence because we got the temporary fence at school and it's a lot easier. So explain the roles and responsibilities in your group. So in my case, it would be Mr. Coombs' role, getting the fence and putting it up, explanation of role, the one to do the work, level of responsibility is high. Then I'd have people who are going to help me. So Mrs. Coombs is going to be just helping me. So her level of responsibility is low. My son Eli, he's going to be supervising. So again, low responsibility. But you can do it amongst your family. Brother is going to supervise, mum's going to help, etc. Whatever works for you. You then just need to put it out in steps. Make them as clear as possible because you might know for instance, how to put the fence there, but someone who's never done that before might need specific steps. So, for instance, take the fence panels to the site, take the feet to the site, take the shackles to the site, put the feet where they need to go, etc. So it needs to be very, very detailed. Again, presentation. Email it to us and a peer. How long is it going to take you to do specific things and why? A lot of these will be one-day things. So expected achievement, put up fence, date, today, whatever it is, and again, get it signed. If it goes longer than one day, that is fine. Every day you do that physical work, you need to create a work diary. This just asks you to tell us what was your plan for today, what actually happened, what would you do differently next time, how did working as a group help or hinder you, and then an overall reflection. You just need to do one of those each day that you do it. Finally, for that outcome, you need to look at page 27. 27 asks you to do an evaluation of how the activity went. And there's some questions there which are fairly self-explanatory for you to go through. You just need to do it. Again, after that, there's a peer review and a staff reflection. Just email it to us so that we can give you a comment that can be put in there. Outcome 5 is the last thing that you need to do. This requires you to find a job ad and copy and paste it or cut it out and stick it in this book, which is on page 29. This is designed to get you used to applying for jobs because it can be a bit scary. So what you need to do is to apply for that job. So you need to create a cover letter and a resume made specifically for that job. For your resumes, it should just be updating it. Cover letters, you need to write it specifically to that job. So they might have criteria there. You need to say why you're going to be good at meeting that criteria. Then again, you need to get some feedback, email it to us, and then do a reflection. What would you change next time? If you can do that, then you will have passed Work-Related Skills Unit 1 for the first time. Remember, we require you to do this 3 times to complete the unit. We anticipate that each of these booklets is going to take you 4 weeks to complete. At the start of term 2, you should already have completed 2 and you just have 1 to go. If not, you need to make sure you catch up. Stay safe, guys. Thank you.